And welcome to the Citizen Report. I'm John Shannon in North Carolina.
And I'm David Heller in Oklahoma.
And thank you for joining us. As always, this newscast is real, in-depth, American. So glad that everyone can join us. And David, so glad to have you on tonight as well. And in case anybody hasn't already noticed, I am on camera here. David, due to a technicality, is going to be an audio only for tonight. But we have now officially begun that transition into being on camera. And hopefully in a few weeks, we will have all that ironed out. And certainly it's one of those exciting changes coming here to the Citizen Report. And David, obviously it's a big news day. It's really hard for you and I to get our heads around everything that's happening, as everything is just happening so quickly right now, literally as we're talking here. David, as we understand, there are protests, there are riots in multiple major cities, including Minneapolis and Charlotte even. There are protests taking place right now. And David, I'm just going to hand it over to you to basically debrief everyone on what you know is happening at the moment.
Thank you very much for that, Jonathan. And as you said, this has been a big breaking news day here at the Citizen Report. And I'll just debrief everybody of what we know as of recently, as in within the last, say, 30 minutes. In Bakersfield, California, there's been a car. We don't know for sure what type of car it is, whether it's police or, what have you, that has ran over protesters. And Jonathan, I know you have the video of that. We're not going to play the soundbite due to too much language. But all we know is there's been a car that has ran over protesters in front of the police station in Bakersfield.
I will have that soundbite up in just a moment here. As you said, David, we are not going to play the audio because of the language that's in that video. And we want to tell viewers that although there's nothing per se gruesome in this video, it is disturbing. We want to stress that before we play this. And you'll have to bear with me one moment as I get it up. But I'll just tell everyone that this is in Bakersfield, California. This is not, as far as we know, we are not aware of who this is. This car, I should say. This was across from a police station, according to a tweet. We want to stress this is not confirmed in terms of location, but we want to say it looks personally to me, to the untrained eye, to be a personal vehicle, just an average person in an SUV. We do not know the circumstances beyond that. And as I said, we are not going to show or play the sound if we can. And as I said, I'm going to be very careful to make sure I mute that before I go any further, because there is language in this video. David, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, let's play it. So, and we'll play it one more time here. Again, nothing gruesome, but it is disturbing. It doesn't show too much, but clearly there's some people being knocked over, knocked around as the car or SUV comes through. This is not my material. This is someone else. And David, all over the country, there's things breaking out. David, what else? What other info do you have?
In Louisville, Kentucky, there's been a report that police there have opened fire on the reporters and folks that are reporting these protests out in Louisville, Kentucky. we also have video on that one as well. And do you have the video, Jonathan?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I have on my personal phone, and you folks will have to. I apologize. This is literally all this is just happening right now. So obviously we're kind of tripping over ourselves right now because a lot of this material is just fresh, hot off the wires, as the saying goes. But let me do this. Let me pull up my profile here, and we will get up to our other top stories momentarily. But just to say that I am pulling it up now on Twitter. Okay, here we go. Let me share my screen. As far as I know, there's no language in this, so I think we're free to, I think we can play the sound with it. This is disturbing again, nothing gruesome, but disturbing. I do not mean to disturb people, but I must caution that before I play this video. Let's listen in or watch.
Okay, well, you keep going and go where you gotta go, and that's fine with us.
Okay.
We got plenty of time here.
Are you okay?
I'm getting shot! I'm getting...
Katie, are you okay?
Rubber bullets! It's okay. It's those pepper bullets. It's those
Are
pepper
they...
bullets.
Who are they aiming that at?
Nice shooting at the photographer.
Us, like directly at us. Directly
Why
at
are they
us.
doing that?
He's shooting at our crew.
I don't
Do
know.
they not know that obviously they see the camera? Okay.
That was from WAVE Channel 3 in Louisville. That was a camera crew, a cameraman, and a reporter. Some police shooting rubber bullets, it would appear, at the photographer. Now, David, I am not going to venture too far down the conspiracy route on that, but that to me looks really off. I don't know why, but just my gut feeling something is off. Why would a police officer point at a cameraman knowing he's being recorded and shoot rubber bullets? I just truly am failing to understand the logic of that.
Exactly. And
Something is off.
I agree, because
I'm not saying it's completely staged. I'm not saying that was faked. I'm not saying that. But
right.
Could it be possible that this was one of those things a deep state likes to do, and they put somebody, an infiltrator, and they do certain stuff like that to hype things up? I'm not saying I have nothing to back that up with, but to me, David, something about that just looked really, really off. I'll defer to you on what you have to think. I have to say on that.
Yeah, that is, one of those things that is just way off. Mm-hmm. We don't know the details on why they're doing that. Other than that, it's just ridiculous. It's all I'm going to say on that. So that's what's going on in Louisville. In New York, there's been protests near the Barclays Center, the home of the NBA's Brooklyn Nets, and apparently, NYPD SUV window. The windows on the SUV has been shattered. No other information other than that one. And then, while we're at it in New York, one of their police vans was apparently set on fire. We don't have any video on that one other than what is being reported on at this time. Other areas in Atlanta, there's been reports that the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta is being looted. We don't know any other information on that one other than that. Glass bottles are being thrown at Detroit police officers that are in riot gear as well. That's in Detroit. This just came in. The 88th New York Police Department precinct has been overrun, and that the brass is monitoring the 84th and Brooklyn North precincts. So that's just come in as well. So just a lot of breaking news. Oh, and here's another one. More arrests are in progress with the protests in Detroit. So Jonathan, there's just so much breaking news, and including what's going on in Charlotte that I want the viewers to see. This is live footage right now of WSOC TV. This is out of Charlotte. And as you can see in Charlotte, there are protests happening right now in Charlotte. And just before I shared the screen, I saw people that were kicking some of the squad cars, the Charlotte Mecklenburg police squad cars, that is. And right now, Jonathan, this is the live shot on, I believe it's Betty's. I probably mispronounced it, and if I did, I apologize in advance.
Beatty's Ford Road.
Yes, Beatty's Ford Road.
I know where that is, approximately.
Yep, this is in West Charlotte, and we have the aerial footage now of from the chopper. This is out of WSOC TV, the ABC affiliate in Charlotte.
Chopper 9.
As you can see, we have police cars just surrounding one of the, I'm not sure what they're doing, but they're surrounding something there.
Yeah, something is definitely going on there. Certainly makes me grateful to not be there right now, and certainly grateful my dad, who works at the airport, isn't there right now. David, for at least the next few moments, leave that up in the background, or, on your end, that is. And if we need to take something while we're still talking about this, let's do that. I'm going to supersede the sharing feature, and so we can, so I can show viewers this. This is from QAnon, and I believe this plays well into what we're talking about here. This is post number 4325 from May 26th. This is only 3 days ago. Now, this isn't something that just came down tonight, the post, but I believe it plays exactly into what we're talking about here. And let me read this. This is Q showing us a picture of the American flag, and then here's what it says. And I'm not going to bother explaining everything in this post, but I'm just going to kind of leave it up to viewers to interpret as they see fit. These, and I believe that means Democrats, in coordination with D and F assets, have launched, as known, a full-scale insurgency attack against the people of the United States in an effort to regain power by any means necessary. All assets deployed. Current landscape coordinated in deliberate events to impact or rig the presidential election. War. The future of our republic is at stake. Survival as a nation. We rise or we die. We the people. Q. And David, and the only reason why I mention that, because I do believe I believe that that the deep state likes to take real events, and we don't know. I'm not a reporter on the ground. I can just say from the past events, they like to take real events and stir up things and get people riled up, turning against each other, like race riots, race wars, and it's all brought to you by the deep state, the certain people of the mainstream media, not everybody, but certain members of the mainstream media. Like I saw on MSNBC, they had somebody on that was seemingly justifying certain things of the protests. And
go ahead.
No, please go ahead. I was about done anyway.
You're exactly right. It's all this. What's happening right now across the country is being set up right now with these unnecessary acts of violence.
Yeah.
They're being forced upon right now, and I agree. I think the media has played some role in this.
Yeah.
So,
and we're not saying that the average reporter, like at the local TV station or something like that. I'm talking about the national network like CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, or as Mark Levin likes to call it, the New York Slimes. You have the Washington Post, or as Mark Levin likes to call it, the Washington Compost, that in general, they like to say things of the president. They like to say that the president is just a liar. He's this, he's that, and of course they just drum things up. And when the dust settles, David, there's nothing there. They just want to stir things up, and in another day it'll be another thing. I guarantee you.
That is exactly right, and obviously, it's just,
yeah.
It's just, sad that, things like that, are being, forced upon, especially in some of the media. And, obviously, one thing we forgot to mention briefly, when we were talking about the protest, you mentioned CNN. Well, the CNN Center apparently had Cracker Jacks and stuff being fired at the CNN Center, and the CNN sign there got graffiti on it.
Oh, really? I didn't know about the CNN sign. I assume that's the one that's like at ground level and like right outside the building or something like that. That one.
Yep. That is outside of CNN Center. So
not surprising given the other pictures we were seeing.
Yeah,
it's just one of those times. We are living through pretty historic times right now in every respect. And again, folks, you need to use your discernment. We're not here to say that what you're seeing is fake. That is not what we're saying. What we're saying is that they are taking a ridiculously sinister, cowardly act by a police officer and using his knee to subdue the suspect or whatever, and that was wrong. And he should go, if he's found guilty, he should absolutely go to prison and maybe even the death penalty, as if the jury sees fit.
Yes, and I just have to share my screen. This is live right now in Charlotte.
Wow.
I don't know what just happened there, but looks like.
Is this Beatty's Ford Road, or is this a different location?
I believe same location. I believe same location. Wow. I believe what just happened. I think it was tear gas. I'm not sure what just happened, but something just got fired at, and I saw smoke come out of that. So this is all happening right now, folks.
Wow.
This is live.
All I can say is that I'm glad we didn't move there. We live pretty sure close. We live very close to Charlotte. We live in a neighboring county, and I'm just glad we don't live there. Not to say that this town is completely immune from that ever happening, but God forbid it ever came to this town. But that's not good. David, keep an eye on that, okay? We do need to get to some other things right now, because this has been a big week in other ways too. The president, David, he had two, as I understand it, two of his tweets fact-checked by Twitter. Now, it's important for people to understand. That is no small thing. It's important to understand. You're either considered like a website like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google, the rest. You're either considered to be a publisher, which means you edit content, you decide what content gets priority, you decide what to focus on, all that stuff. Everything that comes inherently with being a publisher. But you have the other distinction of being a utility, basically, in effect. And the Google, these, especially Google and I guess Facebook, and I'm not singling anybody out, just in general, they have tried to walk this line of saying they're both, which is not. You have to pick one. You're either a publisher or you're a utility. And the reason I mention that is this, and it's a significant distinction. If you're a publisher, you can say what you can edit what you want, but you can't pretend to have free speech. You can't say that you're right down the middle and you're impartial. The thing is that as a utility, though, is that you're supposed to have certain immunities from lawsuits. But as being a utility, you're not allowed to just censor those you disagree with, only those that break the law. And what you're seeing right now is Google, Facebook, they're asking basically, and Twitter especially, they're just asking to be basically they've enjoyed this immunity, if you will, of being a utility, as I understand it. But if it's concluded that they're actually a publisher, that means that they're not actually down the middle impartial, and of course they're not. But here's the thing: as a utility, you can't just filter those out that you disagree with, particularly conservative voices. And I want to read this. This is the executive order because President Trump just totally had it. He had it. David, can you see this?
Let me pop off the feed. There it is. Got it.
You got it?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Executive order on preventing online censorship. This was issued yesterday, May 28th. And I'm just going to read some of this anyway. Obviously, this is an executive order. And it talks about free speech as the bedrock of American democracy. Again, we're not a democracy, but we'll let that go for now. We're a constitutional republic. We have this sacred right. Our founding fathers protected this sacred right with the First Amendment to the Constitution. The freedom to express and debate ideas is the foundation for all of our rights as a free people. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and again, I'm skipping around here for brevity purposes. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube wield immense, if not unprecedented, power to shape the interpretation of public events, to censor, delete, or disappear information, and to control what people see or do not see. As president, I have made clear my commitment to free and open debate on the internet. Such debate is just as important online as it is in our universities, our town halls, and our homes. It is essential to sustaining our democracy. Again, we're a constitutional republic, but just, online platforms are engaging in selective, that's the key word, selective censorship that is harming our national discourse. Tens of thousands of Americans have reported, among other troubling behaviors, online platforms flagging content as inappropriate, even though it does not violate any stated terms of service, making unannounced and unexplained changes to company policies that have the effect of disfavoring certain viewpoints and deleting content and entire accounts with no warning, no rationale, and no recourse. Twitter now selectively decides to place a warning label on certain tweets in a manner that clearly reflects political bias. As has been reported, Twitter seems never to have placed such a label on another politician's tweet. As recently as last week, Representative Adam Schiff was continuing to mislead his followers by peddling the long disproved Russia collusion hoax, and Twitter did not flag those tweets. Unsurprisingly, its officer in charge of so-called site integrity has flaunted his political bias in his own tweets. Let me skip on down here. Well, you know what? Let me read this. This is important here, folks. One United States company, for example, created a search engine for the Chinese Communist Party that would have blacklisted searches for human rights, hid data unfavorable to the Chinese Communist Party, and tracked users determined appropriate for surveillance. It also established research partnerships in China that provide direct benefits to the Chinese military. Other companies have accepted advertisements paid for by the Chinese government that spread false information about China's mass imprisonment of religious minorities, thereby enabling these abuses of human rights. They have also amplified China's propaganda abroad, including by allowing Chinese government officials to use their platforms to spread misinformation regarding the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic and to undermine pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. And this is I think this is where it gets a little more teeth into, where this executive order puts a little more teeth in, in what it's saying here. This is Section 2 regarding protections against online censorship. Section A, or subsection A, I guess. It is the policy of the United States to foster clear ground rules promoting free and open debate on the internet. Prominent among the ground rules governing that debate is the immunity from liability created by Section 230C of the Communications Decency Act. It is the policy of the United States that the scope of that immunity should be clarified. The immunity should not extend beyond its text and purpose to provide protection for those who purport to provide users a forum for free and open speech, but in reality use their power over a vital means of communication to engage in deceptive or pretextual action stifling free and open debate by censoring certain viewpoints. Now, I could keep reading, and that was quite a bit I read there, but I want to say this. They have been trying to hide behind this immunity by saying that they can basically say that we don't have to answer. We're basically immune from oversight with regards to, if we decide to censor somebody. And what the president is saying here is that basically, if you read between the lines here, and you really don't have to read between the lines much because it basically more or less says it in many respects, but it basically is saying that, they're abusing the language of that law to say that they're immune from, liability from censoring people just for having a political viewpoint. It has nothing to do. It's not their job to fact check people. It's not. And, when you have things like child pornography, when you have illicit drugs and, whatever the case may be, there are laws to say you cannot put child pornography and things of that nature on the internet. And basically the companies have the obligation, but also the immunity from liability as a result of pulling that content down, which I'll just stress again, they have absolute obligation to pull content that breaks the law. But what they do not have the right to do, David, is censor people because they have a different viewpoint. And on that note, I'll defer to you to what you have to say on that.
I think that, and I'll speak on behalf of my dad, who has been, put in Facebook jail for some of the things that he said. I think social media in general, while it's good for sharing, getting media breaking news and everything else, however, when it comes to expressing your opinions and everything else, it's just not a good place to have that, because you and I could disagree with somebody, with a particular subject, and yet I could be the one that gets sent to Facebook jail and what have you, because they like to censor people,
right?
And that is just not right.
Right. And I will just add this, that when here's the thing, is that in reality, and I agree with that, by the way, good insight from your dad. But let me just add this, that in this modern day, in the year 2020, social media has really become the town hall in a sense. That was of revolutionary times. Back in the day, you had the town hall and stuff like that. Nowadays, social media really plays a big role in regards to that. And so it's important that Twitter, Google, YouTube, which is owned by Google, Facebook, and all these other companies, that they are made to respect the constitutional right, the God-given right to free speech, because free speech really is derived from free will. And when they deprive you of free will, that's a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And go ahead.
And never mind. I was going to mention something that I share my screen with, but I'll go ahead and hold my thought there.
Okay, that's fine. Let me let's switch gears right now to talk about the stuff that's been going down here in North Carolina, and notwithstanding what's been going on with obviously the fluid situation in Charlotte. I do want to talk about this, and that is Governor Cooper, if you can believe this, has been sued by media outlets, including CBS 17, which is WNCN, the CBS affiliate in Raleigh-Durham. This is their article, and I'm just going to read just a tiny bit of this. A coalition of more than 24 media outlets filed a lawsuit on Thursday seeking the release of a list of records related to COVID-19 that the state had so far refused to provide. The lawsuit names as defendants Governor Roy Cooper and two of his cabinet secretaries, Dr. Mandy Cohen, Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, and Eric Hooks, Secretary of the Department of Public Safety. And actually, let me keep reading here because it's important that I paint a bit, the picture enough here. The complaint lists a total of 26 outstanding public requests, 9 to DPS and 17 to DHHS, submitted by media outlets for records that could be helpful in reporting on COVID-19. All but one of the requests were submitted since the pandemic began. Among the records listed in the lawsuit are the state's database on COVID-19 cases with personal identifying information removed, the database maintained by the State Office of Emergency Management to track requests for personal protective equipment, or PPE, I'll say, and other supplies by hospitals and local governments, copies of reports of prison inspections conducted during the pandemic, communication between officials at DPS and DHHS, and communication from DHHS officials to local health departments. Let me stop there because that's a lot to take in. And again, there are other outlets in this lawsuit. But let me just say this, that it's becoming very, very clear that the governor does not want to put the information out there. Why? We don't really know. I can speculate that the reason that governor is not being forthcoming with that information is because if the information was fully out there, it would, for one thing, demonstrate that that this COVID-19 thing isn't as bad as they're making it out to be, and I think it's interesting that now that even the mainstream media is getting upset with it, and with Governor Cooper, that is. And one more thing, and this is kind of on subject. This is from WBT Radio. I will share my screen just one more time for this. This is regarding the Republican National Convention. We're supposed to have a Republican convention in Charlotte coming up in a few months. The headlines from WBT Radio reads, Republican National Convention Chairwoman, or Republican National Committee, I should say, Chairwoman, asking Governor Cooper for guidelines to conduct convention. Ronna McDaniel is frustrated, still wants Republican National Convention in Charlotte. In an exclusive interview on WBT's The Pat McCrory Show, Republican National Committee's chairwoman Ronna McDaniel said before her group can give any detailed plans on what the Republican National Convention in Charlotte would look like in late August, they first need to have a set of guidelines from Governor Cooper. And here's the key phrase, everyone. She has given Cooper a deadline of June 3rd to provide guidelines, after which the RNC will start looking elsewhere for possible host sites. Now, that is a pretty big deal, because that is basically to say, look, Governor Cooper, if you don't stop playing politics with us, we're going to go somewhere else. And it would be a shame, this is me talking here, it would be a shame if Charlotte lost out on that. But you know what? If Governor Cooper is not going to be reasonable, because I remember personally from the 6 o'clock news on that radio station that basically it was said by her that if they provided the details to the the state government, they would just leak it out to the press. I mean, and they want guidelines. They want to have basically an idea of what of how to formulate a plan, what they want, what the state wants, and the state government is not being that reasonable. And David, I don't know about you, but I think that if the governor doesn't straighten up pretty fast, he may end up losing the Republican National Convention. And let me tell you, that won't just be bad for our economy and also just losing out on having that historic event here in Charlotte, but also the fact that it's going to look incredibly bad on the governor if he in any way provoked them having to move.
Exactly. Not only that, but also think about this. If the RNC has to move out of Charlotte, not only, as you said, could it do bad damage to the economy in North Carolina, but it could further damage Cooper's chances of getting reelected.
Exactly. I think that he's really on thin ice here, because he's either going to back down and let the Republican convention happen in Charlotte, which I was excited for. I want to see have that historic thing happen in Charlotte. I mean, the fact that it's not just any convention, though. We're talking about re-electing a president, and as Q says, this is not another 4-year election. This is in every single respect in a truly historic election. And if Governor Cooper causes something like this to move to another state, I don't think the voters in North Carolina, the people in Charlotte, the people in Raleigh, the blue areas, they're going to do what they're going to do. But I'm talking about the swing voters and particularly the red base, the conservatives. I would kind of include the libertarians, I suppose, into that, lump it in a little bit in a certain respect. This is not going to end well for Governor Cooper. He's either going to admit defeat or he's going to provoke them to leave. And either way, this isn't going to end too well. I'm not telling everyone to let their guard down. Everyone needs to get out there and vote this fall. But I am saying, from my personal, as I see it, from my personal viewpoint, this is not going to end well at all for Governor Cooper.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And Cooper has got to be very careful here. He's got to be careful. Otherwise, as you said, Jonathan, he may lose the second term.
I think that's possible anyway, but I think he's going to really, really up those chances significantly if the Republicans leave. And I'll just tell you this. That if they leave and go to a different state, I personally would like to see Florida hopefully get it. That's just my personal opinion. I think that Florida has earned that at this point. Georgia as well. I personally wouldn't want to hold it in Atlanta right now. I don't know, maybe Augusta, Savannah. I mean, even Macon. Consider that. If in Florida, maybe in Jacksonville, because I think they still lean just slightly to the right. The populace there in Jacksonville or Duval County. But David, we'll keep watching that as well. I do want to mention this too about this. This has been, as I said, folks, this has been a huge news day in every respect. And President Trump has done this. This is from Fox News. Trump announces United States terminating relationship with World Health Organization. Keep in mind, the World Health Organization has been infiltrated by China, the Chinese party there. They have, as the article mentions, it's pro-China bias. And of course, it's really not surprising that it was the WHO that classified COVID-19 as a pandemic. And as a result, that is why everyone else started saying, because they said that it was a pandemic. And I would not be surprised if at the end of this, we really come to find out that, yes, there was a virus, but it was highly curable with hydroxychloroquine. And they just wanted to, they wanted to hype things up, keep people in fear, keep people under control. But they are losing the narrative rapidly, David. And I think that President Trump, he is showing that he is absolutely going after the globalists here. And we're just seeing that he's not kidding around here. If you take advantage of America, if you do something to harm America, like the WHO, having their pro-China bias, anything that's a proxy to China at this point, we need to review with strong, significant scrutiny. Right, David?
Yes, exactly. Exactly right. And quite frankly, that should have happened a long time ago, to be honest. That should have happened a long time ago.
I do hope that in his second term, he'll do something like that with the United Nations. As someone said it, get the United Nations, get America out of the United Nations and get the United Nations out of America. And you know something, David? Can I just say this?
Yes.
You know what I'd like to see happen? I'd like to see once Trump once he's completed his 2 terms, I'd like to see the United Nations headquarters turned into the Trump Presidential Library. How about you?
Yes, exactly.
That'd be kind of a turn of events to have it go from a globalist, evil banker organization, headquartered there, to being turned into the Trump Presidential Library Museum. But one thing though, they need to get rid of that little statue or whatever that shows a gun with a knot around it or so, to basically symbolize that they're against guns. That needs to be taken down, just like the Saddam Hussein statue in Baghdad was brought down so many years ago. In the same fashion, that needs to happen with that little statue. But David, one more thing I have to share with viewers before we get to our other stuff. This is from the Gateway Pundit. President of El Salvador announces that he is taking hydroxychloroquine, says most world leaders doing the same. And he told reporters on Tuesday that most world leaders are doing the same and has questioned why world leaders are being advised to use it while the public is not. Now, of course, we know that President Trump, he's been putting it out there that hydroxychloroquine is good. And, he's the exception. He is telling people just by bringing it up. And, of course, the media absolutely hates him through and through, but just even more so that he would mention hydroxychloroquine in a good way. And that's why you see the media attack hydroxychloroquine, because you know why? It works. They know it works. And if people know it works, they don't have to wear masks anymore. They don't have to fear anymore. They can go out of their homes, and if they get COVID-19, they can take hydroxychloroquine. But what have we seen happen? What have we seen happen? We saw Governor Cuomo put people in nursing homes or kept them there. He told nursing homes that they do not have the right to refuse COVID or to refuse people on the account of COVID-19. And David, I just think that the deep state, they're in a panic. This is not going to end well for them because they are losing the narrative. They have lost the narrative, and that's why you're seeing them inciting violence in a different way, because they're trying to distract and get people focused on something else. They're trying to do a switcheroo here.
That's exactly right. And what we're seeing across the country is exactly that. The Democrats, the people on the left, the deep states, the Ds, as you like to call them,
the Democrats,
they're just trying to do the switcheroo and get people to panic and focus on something else because they're losing the battle right now on COVID-19.
Exactly. They know it's coming to an end. I was out on the roads earlier today, and I could just tell the traffic was a lot fuller. People were venturing out. I have to say, we got takeout at a McAllister's Deli tonight, and unfortunately, there weren't people there at that particular moment dining in, at least not that I could tell. But there were people getting takeout. But I mention all that to say people are willing to get out, slowly but surely, and I think people are realizing, something. I don't have to panic anymore. Of course, me personally, Jonathan Shannon, I knew from the beginning that this was all hyped up. I'm not saying that there isn't a virus. There is a virus, but it's not worse than the flu. And if you do the right stuff, like if you get it, the doctor can prescribe hydroxychloroquine. They can prescribe zinc, or actually, you can actually take zinc without a prescription. Obviously, you want to follow the directions, but there are certain things you can do to boost your immunity and boost your immune system. And there's really not a need to panic. But the mainstream media wants to panic. They want to make Trump look bad because they know that Joe Biden is not going to win. As I said, and as David X22 report has said, he and I both believe, and I haven't talked to him. I don't mean to draw a correlation there in that sense, but I'm just saying, having listened to him in his reports and me in my own opinions, I do believe that they have somebody, as he would say, waiting in the wings, and ready to take over from Biden, because I do not think Biden stands a chance. They know he doesn't stand a chance. And failing that, if they don't do that, I do believe that whoever he appoints as his VP candidate, if hypothetically he were to win the election, he wouldn't be the one in control.
Exactly. And the mainstream media knows that. So that's and this is why they're panicking on the virus. And therefore, that's why they're panicking and inciting what we're seeing tonight all across the country.
Exactly, David. And I'm not going to play the soundbite for time constraints, but I just want to show everyone this. Go to Full Measure with Cheryl Atkinson, produced by Sinclair Broadcast Group. You can find their YouTube channel. I just want to mention that President Trump said, quote, "I have a chance to break the deep state." He's making it clear to everyone he is going after the deep state. We knew that from day one and before day one. But he's just putting it out there in the mainstream that he is going after the deep state. And I truly believe, David, he's not perfect. None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect, but I'm just saying that he is being used of God to get rid of the globalists, because the globalists, they are usurping the people's ability to live peacefully, and more to the point, they're usurping people's free will. And I think, David, that when it's all said and done, This is going to probably be the most historic presidency, certainly since the Civil War.
Oh,
At
yeah.
least. At least.
Yeah. Exactly. Without question. This may be the historic to Jonathan, if I may say, this may be these two terms, the first term we're in right now and the second term, should President Trump get reelected, which I think he will.
Me too.
I think those two terms are going to be some of the most historic terms that a president has gone through, quite frankly, in American history.
I agree. I agree with that. I think that those who mock, those who are not in the mainstream, who pay attention to alternative media, those who mock conservatives, patriots, I think that they're going to have egg on their face. With all due respect, I think that I do believe that there are going to be indictments of certain people coming down the pike. And I think that there will come a point where only the truly brain dead people are going to still be asleep. I think that there's going to be a mass awakening taking place in this country. And we're already seeing that. You're seeing the walk away movement with the Democrats. People are literally leaving the Democrat plantation, as I like to call it. And the Democrats, they were the party of slavery. And then decades and decades ago, they switched the history. They made it out to be the Republicans were the racists. They were the slave owners when it was the Democrats. And unbeknownst to people in America, they didn't know. A lot of them didn't know. Some of them did, but most, if not most, certainly a lot of Americans just didn't know that it was truly the Democrats. And David, we are running out of time here, but before we get back to the top story, I'll just say this. As I said, there's going to be a mass awakening, and I think that when that happens, it's going to be the job of the alternative media to help people wade through that, because it's not going to be pretty when people find out that Obama, we're already hearing this. That's the thing. We're already hearing it, that Obama was spying on Trump, as Trump calls it, Obamagate. We're going to find out in the mainstream, because we already know, but Obama it's going to come out at some point in the mainstream, where the mainstream media is no longer going to be able to hide it, that Obama committed treason, quite frankly. And I'm not saying that lightly. He committed treason, and those surrounding him. Exactly.
And obviously, we'll certainly keep up on all the other stories. And as Jonathan said, switching back to the top story, a couple of notes that just came in as we were talking about the other stories. There was a huge fight that broke out in front of the White House.
Yeah. And briefly, according to initial reports, the White House was actually put on lockdown for a period of time. That it doesn't appear to be that way now. I don't know for sure. But there was a period of time earlier this evening where the White House was put on lockdown. David and I, we do not know where the president is right now, but we can most definitely assure you that he's surely safe, because I believe in general the military is keeping him safe from those that would seek to do harm by the globalists.
And the 5th Precinct, the police department, the Minneapolis Police Department, they're being surrounded by protesters now. Apparently tear gas got deployed in Atlanta. Detroit Police Department almost literally yanked the drivers of this Jeep onto the street.
What?
Yeah.
Say that part again.
Detroit Police Department almost literally yanked the drivers of the Jeep out onto the street.
Why?
I'm guessing probably that Jeep was probably running over, I'm guessing, the officers, I don't know why.
Oh, wow. Well, obviously, as with this breaking information, sometimes we don't know for sure
Yeah.
And we stress that certain information we have to say is not confirmed. We just have to say, this is what we're hearing. We don't know. You know, and that's just the way that's what happens when something's breaking like this.
Yeah. And now we're getting the protests in Des Moines, Iowa. Over this now.
Wow, so, that's significant too.
Yeah, and protesters have shut down Interstate 75 in Cincinnati as well.
They have shut down Interstate 75?
In Cincinnati, that is correct.
Keep going. I'm just checking something. Continue.
The protests in Detroit have become, or slowly starting to become more and more violent. Let's see. Apparently, KGET, the NBC affiliate channel 17 in Bakersfield, they're having protesters outside their studio.
Which station?
Channel 17, the NBC affiliate in Bakersfield.
That's owned by Nexstar. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. They're having protesters outside their building. The Atlanta NAACP is begging people to go home.
That's surprising.
Trying to see what else.
David, can I just jump in real quick and say this is from WLWT Channel 5. That's a Hearst station in Cincinnati. They're reporting update I-75 back open downtown after demonstrators move onto highway. So, yes, they had been on the highway, but apparently I-75 is now back open. Let's see. It was near downtown just after 9 p.m.
Yes. More breaking news. The Louisville Police Department has been vandalized. Now.
Well, and also I know this, that one of the precincts in Minneapolis was actually burned.
Yes.
And for some reason, the police were either told or just did not. I assume they were ordered not to defend it. Mm-hmm. It's really that says something in of itself.
Right. This just in. Detroit PD appears to have just released tear gas and possible gunshots at the Detroit protests. Broken windows and looting in downtown Des Moines with police rushing protesters and firing flashbangs at them, and KCCI, which is a Hearst station, has a crew right in the middle of it all.
Well, we will continue to. We will. This is a developing situation. We'll continue to keep everyone updated on that. We are running out of time rather rapidly here. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. For the first time, me being on camera, David will be on camera soon. And we want to just remind viewers of our website, thecitizenreport.weebly.com. And also Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can find me there. David, you can be found on Twitter and wherever else you would like to mention.
Facebook and Instagram and places like that. YouTube as well. I've surpassed 400 subscribers now. So
congratulations.
So yeah, and I will not be on here next week. I will be away in Branson, Missouri, on vacation next week. So
and do have a good time. It is a beautiful area, I will say. I spent part of my childhood there, and it's a wonderful place. I hope you have a great time out there, and I will keep the fort held down here on the Citizen Report. I'm not going to announce who it is. That will be on. But just to say, you do not want to miss next week. I think it's going to be quite an interesting show, to say the least. So, David, it's always great to have you on with me, and I'll miss you next week. But of course, I know you'll be back soon, and I hope you have a great time in Branson.
Thank you very much, and have a great week, everybody. Have a great weekend. Trust God, and. Yeah. And we'll get through this together.
That's right. All right, everyone. Have a great night, everyone, and I will see you again next week. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
The Citizen Report is a production of New Shannon Media. All content protected under copyright.